Today's guest is Sebastian Dienst, the founder of Advanced Coaching and a transformational coach who blends 2 decades of startup experience with a deep foundation in mind body wisdom. Sebastian's work is rooted in helping founders and leaders unlock their fullest potential, not just through strategy, but through inner work. In this conversation, we explore how Sebastian combines outer technology with inner technology to help entrepreneurs break through personal roadblocks, limiting beliefs, and even buried emotional patterns that may be holding their businesses back. We'll also talk about the role of AI in reshaping the self help landscape and what it means to be a conscious leader in a time of global transformation. If you're navigating change, searching for purpose, or trying to lead from a place of deep authenticity, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. All right. I got a great one for you today. We have Sebastian Dienst here. And I'm going to let Sebastian give his own intro because the man's got a wide variety of history to him and also is here to help out people in a great way. So, Sebastian, the first question that I have for you is what got you interested in the intersection of humanity and technology?
Hey, Don. First of all, thank you for inviting me. Great to be here. Coming to that question, well, it's been probably the two guiding themes of my life, if I really reflect on it. I got really interested in technology from an early age, got into startups, was fascinated by the rise of the internet. Eventually joined an incubator over time, was a co-founder of 3 different companies. So really immersed myself in what I would now call also the outer technologies. But I was also from a sort of teenage age onwards, quite interested in the inner technologies, as in how does my mind really function? How do my emotions work? And got into meditation at that time, got really interested in neuroscience and different, I would call them sort of mind, body, spirit modalities over the years, where it was just my own intrinsic interest to understand how I function. And over time, it became a little bit sort of obvious and just natural to pass things on, first to friends and family, and then to fellow founders in the space. And at some point, I just realized that this kind of work is more fulfilling for me. It happened about 6-7 years ago that I realized being an operator in a company was incredibly rewarding, but also I was coming to a place in my life where I just wanted to work more with people, more one-to-one. And this is where then I sort of changed sides, so to speak, and became a coach, fusing these two strands, having the experience and the sort of long-standing interest in technologies, outer technology, but then also helping founders and CEOs with the inner technologies of really trying to figure out what are the roadblocks within myself, what are the limiting beliefs and the sort of blind spots that people have that hold them back, and by extension, their companies.
I love the way you're describing this as far as inner technologies, outer technologies. And I frequently tell people that being involved in startups and being an entrepreneur is one of the greatest self-development exercises that I've ever had. Because when it comes down to it, I'm the one who's blocking us. I'm the one who's either, helping us thrive. There are a lot of people that help us thrive, yet I'm the one who's probably holding us back the most because of those limiting beliefs, because of the roadblocks that we put into our place. And I can tell you that coaching has been one of the most profound kind of like impacts for understanding myself and being able to deliver for, my team and for our customers as well. What are some of the things that you see entrepreneurs really thriving with when they come and look at themselves from that mind, body, spirit perspective?
Well, so I think it depends what situations they find themselves in. Generally speaking, I help them on 3 dimensions. One is very straightforward business stuff, a soundboarding, sparing on business decisions across, pretty much any field, product, finance, fundraising, etc. The second area is more leadership related, as in building the skill sets that also evolve as the company grows, right? Running a 10-person startup is very different from running a 200 people scale up. And then third base is then the more inner realm of the limiting beliefs, the blind spots, all the way down to trauma work. I was trained in one or two different modalities that makes me also comfortable and I guess somewhat qualified to go in that direction as well. And in particular, on this last point, you see the biggest unlocks, where there's now in the last, let's say 10, 15, 20 years, an emerging perspective in sort of therapy and coaching, where we look at ourselves as a collection of different parts. So internal family systems, which you might have heard of, was kind of one of the first that introduced that perspective. And then parts work, and now there's more that look at ourselves from this multidimensional perspective. And it's just fascinating because it's very easily translatable into the life of an entrepreneur, right? You can just say, okay, so imagine it's like you have a team underneath you, and some team member is just kind of almost sabotaging the efforts of the team, and just translate that for yourself, right? Like this is how the mind sometimes work, and specifically the subconscious. And now let's zoom in, let's double click on this particular part, this part of you. So who is this? What are their good intentions as well, right? Like we often, especially with parts that are sabotaging ourselves, we're just like, we want to push them away. But ultimately, all of them have a good intention. And so when you ask me about like, what are the biggest sort of unlocks, it's that part in terms of really going into inner work.
I a big fan of Richard Swartz, and he has the of IFS, right? And the book that I do love is You Are the One That You've Been Waiting For. It's a great one that basically describes like what his contribution to parts theory, but in relationship to others, and how like to have the dialogue with yourself, have an understanding of that space of like, you may have I believe he calls them protectors, right? That are, there's parts of you that are locked in the basement, and, the protector is the one who's kind of like holding you back from getting in touch with that, person, because at one point you were told that you can't dance. And so you lock the dancer in the basement, and the protector there is to ensure that you are, able to live the life, and to be part of the community and not get kicked out of the tribe. But at the same time, it's holding you back from enjoying the joy of dancing as well. So
Totally. Protectors, and then the hurt part, right? Underneath the protector part is trying to protect you from feeling the charge of the hurt part again. And they all have good intentions. Um, uh, so it's fascinating to bring this into the business world.
and I think it's so necessary, right? Because we go around and, our protectors are protecting us, but they're also projecting that hurt onto someone else, or utilizing, or stopping that part of us that could be beneficial to the business world from actually playing in that environment. Um, Really an incredible practice that you've got there. What do you see the role of technology playing in like how this inner work is being done today, and how you want to see it being done tomorrow?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously the role of AI is going to be hugely impactful. Um, I think this dates back to the very early attempts to replicate therapy. I think this started already in the early 80s, where participants were just talking to a computer program, and the computer program was basically just reflecting back. I hear you're feeling frustrated about X, Y, Z, and people felt incredibly, relieved, and it was quite cathartic. Obviously, these recent models and the advancements are putting this on steroids. Um, I think the intersection of that with better understanding of our neurochemistry and potential at some point neural implants will just kind of open doorways that are somewhat inconceivable to us today. Um, but if you ask me, you know, what is it right now um, that the role of technology plays? you know, I think it's in some shape or form, obviously challenging us to stay present, and it's making it really hard to, um, be mindful. And I think the rise of mindfulness practices and all sorts of practices around mindfulness are a response to the onslaught on our attention span. So I would say there's direct ways how technology will potentially help us to become better leaders, more present, etc., whatever the quality is. But there's an indirect, challenging, sort of catalyzing effect. I just recently saw the Google Trends chart on smartphone addiction, and it's actually like going quite parabolic, and it filled me with hope because it's like, I see so many people in our day-to-day lives just glued to the phone, just like I am. And I'm asking myself, I've been really fortunate to come across many tools and like skills sets that help me kind of navigate this super intense, brainstem hijacking. But I wonder if someone has never heard of, meditation or any other sort of mindfulness based practices. Gosh, I think it's really hard. And so I think there is this equal and opposite trend uh, overarching in society, that these really powerful technologies will just require us over time to become better in master our mind better, because otherwise it's just like we're doomed in some shape or form.
It's kind of funny when you first said that Google Trends was showcasing, that parabolic trend of people looking at smartphone addiction. You're like, oh no. And at the same time, it actually means that people are looking for a solution to that. So that is rather hopeful to hear. And it does, showcase a raising awareness about like that hijacking that you discussed.
You might have heard the quote, with Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and now godlike technologies. Um, we have to catch up with our emotions and with our sense making and with our ability to stay present to the power that today's technologies hold.
It is quite, I mean, it is an impressive time that we're living in, because this is both technology that is godlike and also technology that is like capturing the attention span of everything that we do. I've noticed it myself, right? Like there's a desire just to like pick it up and to go. And so I've had to turn it into a device that is, less attractive for the dopamine hit as well. So absolutely an incredible kind of journey. Now, how have people, been working with you and understanding themselves in this paradigm? So you have the three legs of the mind, body, spirit, and then you're also going through the, business leadership and inner work side of this too. Like how combining those seems to be like a rather effective way. But I'm probably throwing my own personal kind of like judgments and path into this as well. But I would love to hear from your perspective as far as like how these paradigms have shifted the way that people are working with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really trying to be an open canvas to anyone who is interested in working with me. So I meet them where they are. And if a person really requires like a lot of business sparing for an indefinite amount of time because it's their first business or they feel just quite insecure, then I support them there. Um, Obviously, I will nudge in some questions and prompts and invitations to see aspects that may be underneath. You also have to just kind of intuit where the client is. Like, do they actually, is their almost soul seeking transcendence? Are they seeking something sort of numinous and beyond the day to day? Or are they just trying to make the startup really successful? And if I'm then trying to, bringing the spirituality and the mystery, it would be a mismatch, right? So that is also for me as a coach, brings in a lot of diversity, right? Like I actually enjoy geeking out on very specific financial, product, go-to-market topics, at times, yeah. And then with someone else, sort of see how the mystery is sort of gradually entering their life, and they're sort of in awe of just the bare fact of being alive, or they've just become a parent and they just suddenly have a completely different perspective on purpose. It's not just the business, it's suddenly taking care of a newborn baby. And so it's so rich in that sense. And I'm trying to not put on any sort of agenda on people. If I feel they're sort of, I almost use the word soul is ready for like and is seeking some deeper territory, I'm there to hold space for them and support them there.
I think that's an excellent kind of transition. I was thinking about the book that you're writing about transformation. And like one of the key things that you brought up was humanity is approaching like a transition similar to a butterfly. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that transformation and like where you see these pieces coinciding.
Yeah, the book is the working title right now is The Upcoming Phase Shift of Humanity. And nature shows us that different species or materials completely change their state within their own sort of lifetime. So the one that you mentioned, caterpillar butterfly, is a famous one, but there are others like nymph to dragonfly, where also materials like water and ice, water freezing into ice. It's a completely different state. And so I'm drawing the analogy that nature shows us phase changes are possible. And I'm using the metaphor of the caterpillar being eaten up by what is called these imaginal cells. So in the caterpillar from birth are dormant, so-called imaginal discs or imaginal cells that at some point within the lifespan of the caterpillar just sort of wake up, start eating up the caterpillar pretty much from inside, but leaving certain parts like the nervous system and parts of the brain intact. But then at some point, once everything's eaten up, they start building the butterfly from scratch. And I sort of use this metaphor of the imaginal cells in terms of the breakdowns that we're seeing in across different dimensions of society, as well as the breakthroughs. And I think this is where a lot of people, including myself, for a long time got sort of hung up, that there are, from a different vantage point, from a certain vantage point, lots of very intense crises that we're facing. The four that I mentioned specifically are the advent of superintelligence, the potential breakdown of a monetary system, accelerating climate change, and the end of the US empire. And the thesis being, if just one of those trends would happen in our lifetime in isolation, it would be the biggest thing in our generation. But not just witnessing one of these, it's four sort of colliding over the next arguably 5 to 10 years. And yeah, the thesis is, I mean, I'm still writing the book, but like, it's kind of awe-inspiring because while these breakdowns are happening, there's also all these insane breakthroughs across technologies around system design, around consciousness, aspects of how society operates. I mean, in terms of technology, obviously AI is an incredible breakthrough. I think genetic engineering will be an incredible breakthrough over time. Quantum computing promises to be the same. And if you combine these three, it's going to be even more. But then there's other things, the new energy paradigm that we're moving into, et cetera, et cetera. And so the picture that I want to paint is that there is this kind of, there is another side that we might emerge into. I don't know if we're going to, change as much as the caterpillar changes into the butterfly. Perhaps, who knows? But I think we need to consciously co-create that metamorphosis, because a lot of people are still either in denial of the massive transformation and the big breakdowns that are happening, or if they have woken up to these big crises, a lot of them are stuck in a lot of grief and a lot of pessimism and quite depressed about where the world is going. And I want to formulate something that is both realistic, acknowledging that the intense stuff happening and we're heading into something really, really intense, but there is this kind of eye of the needle that sort of has a narrative that we can get to the other side. And I think we need to consciously work together on getting to the other side. Um, I feel compelled to write about it and do my small part in sort of describing what it is and how we could possibly get there. But still an evolving process, this book, as you can hear.
All four of those items that you described as far as like driving this opportunity for transformation are evolving as well. We're seeing a complete global shift of alliances. We're seeing Ray Dalio, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but wrote the book Principles, hedge fund manager, describes like the cycles of the economy. And, we have short and long-term debt cycles. And one of those long-term debt cycles is basically coming through in the next, 5 to 10 years. And so we'll see that shifting as well. AI has, an incredible power to transform how things are going. In the software development space, we're already seeing 20% fewer jobs being listed on freelance sites. Yet at the same time, like we're seeing an inordinate amount of, demand for our services in AI. But that as a service organization will dry up at some point. And then additionally, like I know content writers are feeling a similar crunch in which I know a number of people who have, lost 80% of their business due to AI as well. And so we've got a really chaotic time when it comes to change because it seems to be happening all at the same time and all rather rapidly. And I think it really paints the picture of the need for, an understanding and have guides like yourself in this space so that we can manage the change and manage the chaos and do it from a place of our own inner peace instead of, allowing the external to be the driver of our, internal frame. Whereas I like to say that, I'd rather be the eye of the storm, being that place of calm, that place of, powerful destruction and creativity when it comes to like what's happening in the world outside. How would you, I know you're in the middle of this, but what are some keys for people to kind of like ground themselves in this, ever changing environment that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like the metaphor of being in the eye of the storm. Um, I think there's different sort of individual tasks as well as then collective tasks in order to get to the other side, this proverbial other side. And often we forget one or the other. So, I mean, let's say more intellectual systems thinking crowd is like, okay, we need to change governance and we need to go on Bitcoin standard. And yeah, that's important, but you forget the inner journey, the inner work that also needs to happen collectively, right? And then the more sort of therapeutic spiritual crowd forgets about the more systems change. So I I think it's going to be the way it sort of is illustrated in my mind. It's like it feels like portals we need to pass through. And there's different portals on the individual level as well as on the collective level. I haven't gotten to that chapter yet, so I can't give you the list. But I think that just the basic frame that it needs to be both system level as well as individual. I mean, there's many obvious ones on both sides, which I could, I do personally think we need to go on a hard money standard that is a neutral reserve asset that is untamperable by governments. That will have so many incredible positive network effects over time. And I think it should be Bitcoin. I don't think it should be Solana or Ripple or something. I don't know how much you're into crypto, but
On the basis, I could agree with that, but I think there's some other governance standpoints that we have to endeavor in as well.
that's a powerful one. Um, I think on a personal level, I think I think we need to start with a lot of forgiveness ultimately for ourselves. Um, Individually, I forgive myself and then we forgive each other. Because there's just an accumulation of just like shitty stuff over the course of humanity almost like it feels like a global reckoning to me at least, that we're heading into. And it requires a lot of forgiveness to heal those wounds from the ground up and then start fresh and have the ability to be able to start fresh. That's kind of the main point. That's one thing that I think I would pick out of probably multiple, but like forgiveness is a big deal.
I can tell you from my own life that that's been a huge, impact to be able to forgive myself, forgive the people that, I'm holding on to any sort of resentment about. And the amazing thing is, we give forgiveness not just for the other person, right? But for ourselves. And like it's the anger that we have been holding on to that has been holding us back from, living in that present moment or like living from that place of love. So absolutely amazing. Sebastian, I gotta say, I really appreciate having you on the show. It's been a lot of fun talking to you today. I think that, our audience will get a great deal out of this. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you'd like to share?
I mean, um, so many potential things, of course. But yeah, I think we live in an incredible time, and I think your podcast, Human Code, picks up on this. And I listened to some of your episodes, and I think what I would love for people to feel inspired by is just the butterfly effect. We talked about butterflies of just getting out there and doing what feels right to you, what your soul sort of compels you to do. You have no idea what the sort of further down the line effects are. I have many examples in my own life where I started something here random and then it led to something incredible. And I think that's also the thesis of my book, like for us to really dare to dream a new world is, I think, a key piece. I love the work that you're doing for it. And I would love everyone to feel encouraged and celebrated to, do what they feel called to bring to this new paradigm that we're all sort of weaving together.
It's beautiful. I love the optimism that you're bringing to this time right now, right? Like it's a time for us to paint with intention and to really drive into it. So again, Sebastian, thank you so much for being on the show today.